Imagine having the perfect bite of gumbo right here in the Bay. Gumbo Social is serving up 4 delicious varieties, including their signature chicken and sausage gumbo. And their mouthwatering po' boys are stuffed with your choice of pork or shrimp and are topped with their famous social sauce. They even have a jackfruit version, plus other amazing vegan and gluten-free options, and they offer catering services too. Visit Gumbo Social at 5176 3rd Street in the Bayview neighborhood of San Francisco. Open Monday and Tuesday from 11 to 3, Wednesday through Saturday from 11 to 8, and you can find them most Saturdays at the Ferry Plaza Farmers Market as well as on your favorite delivery apps. And be sure to join them as they put the social in Gumbo Social on Saturday, June 28th at the Bayview Block Party and 2nd Anniversary Celebration at 5176 3rd Street in San Francisco. This family-friendly event will feature live music, special guests, food and merch vendors, a DJ, and more. So help make gumbo America's national dish. Get tickets at gumbosocial.com and join their email list for the scoop on future events. Mention code POD25 for 10% off your in-person order and check them out on Instagram at Gumbo Social. I'm Kahja Elliott, and I'm a food enthusiast. Bronx born and raised, ATL made, Bay Area becoming. And I talk to people about how they create community through food in the Bay and beyond. Welcome to the As Told By podcast. Welcome. We're back with a new episode this week of the As Told By podcast from right here in San Francisco on the Embarcadero at the Ferry Building. I am talking with Christine Farren, Executive Director of Foodwise, a nonprofit organization dedicated to growing, thriving communities through the power and joy of local food. Founded in 1994, Foodwise operates the world-renowned Ferry Plaza Farmers Market and Mission Community Market in San Francisco, offering food access and educational programming to connect eaters with fresh food and local farms and to inspire communities to take part in creating a fair, regenerative, and delicious food future. So welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, I feel like just in the bio, I learned things.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot that we do.
There is a lot that you do. Now, we're just coming back into your offices after we did a market walk this morning, and I found out lots of things about the market that I didn't know, kind of fun facts and some of the nuances of what you all do.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Let's jump right in.
Okay.
So you mentioned just a moment ago that you are originally from Sacramento.
I am.
Okay.
Both my parents were born here, but San Francisco was too expensive to buy a house, even in the late 60s when they got married. So they moved up to Sacramento. I know. If only they had bought a house. No. So my 2 sisters and I were raised in Sacramento, but I would come back and see my Nana all the time who lived in the Richmond district.
Okay.
And I never thought I would live here because it felt just too big and too fabulous. And my life in Sacramento was a little bit quieter, but I fell in love and I moved here for love. And I said, I'm only going to live here for a couple of years. And then, 25 years later.
25?
Yeah. Well, 24.
Okay.
Yeah. And 22 of those years have been here at Foodwise. This was the first job I found when I started, when I moved to North Beach. Yeah.
You've worked for the same organization for 22 years?
Yeah, I started off as a volunteer. It was a time of incredible transition for the organization. Mm-hmm. It was just before we moved back to the Ferry Building. So for 10 years, we were operating farmers markets around this Ferry Building, but the building was wildly different than you see it now. So right now, the ground floor is fabulous retail and restaurants, and the second and third floors are office space, and from the ground floor, you can look up and see the skylight. That did not used to be the case. This building had 3 floors that were completely sealed. It was an office space. I mean, the building has had many lives over the years, but when the woman who founded our farmers market 32 years ago, when she started the market, she always wanted to come back to the Ferry Building and have the Ferry Building be a different concept. And so the developers who redid the building worked with her, and many of the businesses that are inside the building started their business in our farmers market. So they built their brand and their clientele in our farmers market. Blue Bottle Coffee started in our market.
Okay.
And Miette Patisserie that's inside, Racuti Chocolates, they were all in our farmers market, Acme Bread. Mm-hmm. Not to say that our market was 100% responsible for their success, but farmers markets in general are a business incubator.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're really proud. Whenever someone leaves our market because they've outgrown our business model or they don't need us anymore, we applaud
That's
it.
a good thing.
Yeah, they've graduated.
Yeah.
And then it makes space for a new person to come in.
There's so many businesses at this market and beyond, but there are so many businesses that I originally encountered at a farmer's market and then became like a person who would order from their website or go into their brick and mortar store if they had one, or even their restaurant if they had one, right? Because there's some vendors here that vend sometimes, but then they have a brick and mortar restaurant space or some other space
Gumbo
where people
Social
can shop.
is a great example
Absolutely.
of that.
Absolutely. That breakfast sandwich is good. They're not here today, but that's a good sandwich.
It's their hoe cakes that I go back for all the time.
Okay, those are good too. Yeah.
If we're going to talk about food, we're going to be here for 5 hours.
Listen, the food is good. Trust our judgment. So we're here, like you mentioned, this farmers market, Foodwise was not always at the Ferry Plaza. It was not always at this building, but this building is a global landmark, right? So just talk, if you can, at a high level about maybe a little bit about the history of what this building is.
Yeah, it's such a privilege to work in the Ferry Building because it is so dynamic and so beautiful and beloved and a landmark. It's just celebrated its 125th anniversary as a building, and it's an icon for San Francisco because it has survived through all the major earthquakes and fires, and it's a portal to the city. So originally it was a portal for people prior to automobiles when everyone had to take a boat into San Francisco. And then when the Bay Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge were built in 36 and 37, this building changed from being a place from people coming through to a place for freight. And so ferries, bringing not people, but the container ships bringing goods. That's really what this building became a function for. And then the Port of Oakland was built, and it could handle much larger ships and much bigger operation. And so this building no longer became a portal for freight. And then it changed into office space, and it was that. And then the freeway was built, right? I can't even remember what year I want to say it was the 50s, but it really cut off the city from the waterfront. So in 1989, we have an earthquake that does, in 10 seconds of shaking, what 10 years of public policy advocacy had not been able to do, which is take that freeway down.
Wow.
So for years, people have been saying this freeway cuts the city off from the waterfront. We need to take it down. The city residents couldn't get their head around how long it would take to get off the bridge and get into town, and so they voted, nope, we need to keep the freeway. A couple months after that vote happens, the earthquake happens, and it's more expensive to fix the freeway than to take it down. So it gets taken down, and it opens up this total opportunity for how do we want to be connected to the waterfront? How do we want this part of the city to come back alive again? And the farmers market was one of the first sort of proof of concepts of how to revitalize this section of the waterfront.
Well, it's vital. Like, we're sitting right now in the office of Foodwise, so I kind of got a little bit of a glimpse of the market down below, and it's bustling, right? Even though this market happens 2 times during the week, Saturday is really the day where it's huge, and there's market presence in the front of the Ferry Building and also in the back as well. So we talked about this a little bit during our market walk, but tell me about the process of how this gets set up every Saturday morning.
So the farmers market, and we're actually here 3 days a week. So we're here Tuesdays and Thursdays from lunchtime, and then Saturdays is the big market. Our market operations team comes at 4:30 in the morning. They said they're chalking areas so farmers know where to go. Most of the time, the farmers come back to the same spot, but it still varies. You'll have we have cherries coming in for the first time this Saturday. So we have cherry growers that just come in for cherry season. And so, where are we going to find room for them? It's like a ballet. It's a delicate dance. People come in and people go out and setting it all up. But our team, we're really lucky. We have a really strong operations team. Collectively, they've all worked over 50 years in the industry.
Wow.
4 main people that I've been lucky to have on the team for a long time. There's a lot of heart and soul that goes into running a market. It's a very relationship-based enterprise. It is about community care. It is not about a number and, pull in, here's your spot, good luck, goodbye. We stopped by one of the new coffee vendors, Painted Leopards, their first Saturday in the market.
My coffee was amazing, y'all. I had the brown sugar latte. It was all the things.
Yeah, so it was their first Saturday. Their generator wasn't working. We had to, work with them to get them access to electricity. They needed some help with their booth setup. They needed to borrow something. That's what we're here for. Like, that's the backbone of the operations, is to support these small businesses so they can, feed you all the delicious stuff, and also so they can grow their business, because truly small businesses are the backbone of an economy.
Yeah. You mentioned the vendors. Talk a little bit about the process, how people become vendors here. So of course there's an application process, but what makes for a good vendor here? How many of the same kinds of vendor, like how many coffee people, how many bakery people? What's the structure of how vendor operations works?
It's like an art museum where you want to curate that you don't have too much of the same thing, and that every person you bring in needs to have an interesting story or be doing something a little bit different. So, coffee vendors, we only need 2. We've had 1 for a long time, and those lines are long, it's 20 minutes to get your coffee. And so we bring in 2 people. But, a lot of what we're looking for is also who needs and deserves support, because it's their first time starting a business. So we really believe in the importance of farmers markets to build a brand and build your clientele, and that not everyone comes to the market with the same level of economic resources or inherited wealth or family wealth or connections. And so we have a special program where we're supporting primarily BIPOC-owned businesses to sell in our farmers market, and they get a whole suite of services. So that there's, farmers markets can be a pathway to equity also.
Yes. Kind of similarly, while we were walking around the back area, I saw the signage for La Cocina, which if you're here in the Bay, you know about all of the work they do to create equitable paths in entrepreneurship for BIPOC women. And so kind of similar in the mission, and then they've got representation right here in the market.
They are one of our partners that we work with, and we work with in Mandela Partners, Into Action, Oakland Bloom, a couple of others to help us find businesses. And then if those businesses do well and we have room in our market, then there's a pathway between doing a pop-up and then becoming a permanent vendor. And all along the way, they are supported. So we'll pay their stall fees, their health permit fees. They don't have to pay us anything initially, and then over time, slowly they start paying more until they pay as much as, Joe Schmo off the street.
Okay.
The whole goal being a market doesn't just happen. Like you said, there's intentionality that goes into who's here, who's selling, and why. And so if we can be intentional about who we're bringing in and what stories those folks have and how it enhances the market. You're not just having, a traditional Americana breakfast. You've got, Indonesian food from Nusa. You've got Hog Island oysters, you've got the Primavera chilaquiles. So the market really reflects the diversity of the cuisines and communities that are here, and that makes the market stronger.
Absolutely. I mean, the diversity is all around you. You might hear like that drumming in the back. There is a whole group out here. I don't even know how to describe them. It is primarily Asian folks. They were doing a meditation, organized exercise earlier. They are in beautiful yellow costumes. Their drums playing. So there's just like culture all around this food. And what I love is that, it could be very easy to get caught up in just the food aspect of it because it is a farmer's market. But what I really like about Foodwise is all of the educational and philanthropic things that are happening like right at or under the surface. You do work with kids, which I think is amazing, the workshops that you all provide kids with, because not only is it helping to broaden their palates, but it's almost like giving them food knowledge before their own family structures kind of define what that is for them. Talk a little bit about what the program is that you work with children on.
We have 2 youth programs. The Foodwise Kids program is, I think, the one you're talking about, and that's for grades 1 through 5.
Yes.
It's a free field trip and cooking class. So they come to the market, they have a tasting, they learn a little bit about farmers markets, and then they form in groups and they go off and shop. And we give them these little wooden coins, and so that as a team, those kids are deciding what they want to cook with and eat. And then they come back into our kitchen, they prepare a dish, and they eat it, and they talk about it with each other. And one of the mantras of that program is "Don't yuck my yum." So, in other words, so we want to encourage kids to try new things. If you don't like it, that's fine. But if someone else likes it, don't yuck their yum. And it's a very pro-social environment, right? So the kids are making the choice themselves, and they are sharing it with one another. And it's a very positive environment. And in that positive environment, we are better positioned to try new things. We are more open to new experiences, new flavors, new textures in our mouth if we are in community with each other, as opposed to someone saying, eat this, you should, it's good for you, it's healthy.
Yes. Or we don't eat that.
True.
That too, right?
Or that food is trash, or that food is garbage. So it's also not shaming people for their food choices, but it's opening up the window to say, try this other thing that you haven't tried before. Yeah. Or maybe you like carrots raw, but have you tried them cooked, or have you tried them with this spice on it? So it's about experimentation and play. And when you create that environment, it opens up kids being willing to do and try a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. Not only just that program, but one of the things we saw on our way up here is like the panels and the demos. So chefs come down, you all have a station where they come and actually demo the creation and cooking of a dish. There's like an educational component where they're giving some information. But I think what's good about that is it can create context for you to now turn around and go into the market and buy items to either do that thing or do something very similar. It's almost like demystifying some of the ingredients here, because there is a lot here that people just may not have either heard of, or you've heard of it, but you would really have no idea what to do with it at home.
Did you grow up cooking with puntarella and cardoons?
I don't even know what that is.
Cardoons are in the artichoke family. Puntarella is a bitter chicory. That was all new to me, right? And it can feel really intimidating. Farmers markets can feel very intimidating for people that didn't grow up shopping in them. And so, demystifying that is really important to us, and also just encouraging people to ask questions. We want to lower the barrier of like, you don't have to know how to do this already. So that's why we have a big orange tent called the Seasonal Spotlight. So we're going to pick one item every month. And this month is May, it's berries. So we're talking about all the delicious berries that are in the market and all the different ways you could cook with them. That's kind of an easy one, berries. Everybody loves berries. But last month it was spring greens. There's so many different greens in the market. So we were sampling different greens every month or every week.
Yeah, we passed one of those stands. I'm learning things, and I spend a considerable amount of time at farmers markets, but learning like this is what cilantro looks like as it's flowering, and you can actually eat those flowers and impart them into the things you're making. So even walking through, if you're not partaking in the panels or any of the demo stations, just walking through, you are getting an education. You all have markets at different points of the year that highlight specific populations. I remember coming here and shopping like a women's market or small Black businesses markets as well. Why has it been important to create carve-outs for those kinds of programs?
Because the world isn't fair and we want it to be more fair. And if you want people who have been historically marginalized, excluded, who don't come with that same level of generational wealth to have an opportunity, then you need to carve out the space for that. Their stories are phenomenal. Their food is delicious. Their entrepreneurial spirit is undeniable, and they deserve a platform. And so the carve-outs are about celebrating. I mean, it's a positive thing. It's a positive celebration because of things that are not positive, that are very stressful, that are very, especially in this day and age, are very weighing heavily on my heart about how we navigate this world with integrity and with fairness and justice as a part of our sort of baseline efforts. But what we get to do in hosting those celebrations is bring out the best of people and support them. They are incredibly hardworking, and what our hope is that when they do a little pop-up and they sell stuff with us, that they are, generating business leads, meeting people who are like, oh, my company is going to have this party. Can you cater this event for us?
Yes.
Or, so that let's use the farmers market as a way to connect people even more to other resources of support. Because we know the food's great and we know that people are hardworking, but, even selling at a farmer's market takes a certain level of know-how, and you don't know what you don't know. And so that's why our team is there to say, okay, that coffee vendor that came in for the first time, we think you need flowers on your table, just a little pop of brightness, just a little bit of beauty. We're going to bring you some flowers. Like, that's our job, is to help those businesses kind of get ready for that next level.
Yeah, making it more equitable and accessible. And, yes, with the vendors, but I even think of that when it comes to the programs that allow people who are using CalFresh or food stamps to be able to participate in the shopping experiences in the market. I love that, because to me, that starts to get at the heart of equity, right? If I've had my own experience with CalFresh, I want to say this was back in 2017. I was laid off from a job, and I think for 18 months, and I was using CalFresh, and I had been a farmer's market shopper before that, and I was so happy that I still was going to be able to continue like my tradition of going to the farmer's market on the weekends.
Benefits of the market.
You have that market match program. What does that mean? What is the incentive behind that program?
So if you are a CalFresh recipient, and a lot of us were during the pandemic, because we got cards mailed to us, especially if we had kids. I did as well. That you can use that card at the farmer's market to pull money out of your account, and then you can get it matched with for $15 every day that you come to the farmer's market, and that match is free for you, and it's only for fruits and vegetables. So if I'm shopping and I'm going to pull $20 out of my account and then I get another 15, I've got 35 to spend. That 15 I'm going to buy fruits and vegetables with. That 20 that I pulled out of my account, maybe I'll use it for meat or dairy or bread, something else. And it just allows me to put more fruits and vegetables on my plate for my family. It also benefits farmers, because those farmers who are accepting those coins turn them back into us, and we pay them out in cash for it, or reduce their stall fees. So it helps local farmers. It helps people who are living very close to the bone. And there's even a climate connection where small family farmers are often very focused on farming in a way that is in harmony with nature. And so they are paying attention to soil quality, because the plant is going to taste better if it's grown in healthy soil. They're focused on farm worker health, taking care of the people that are helping harvest everything. Small farmers are often very much at the forefront of innovative farming technologies. So when you have this program that helps people who are, hitting unemployment, in between jobs, or maybe got laid off and or just had a baby and they get WIC, women and infant children, they get these additional benefits, then they can come to the farmers market. They're supporting those farmers. Those farmers are making long-term investments in how they farm. It's just this triple win situation. And it's a program that's hugely important for us. We do get some federal funding back for Market Match, but not entirely. So we privately fundraise for the rest. So when we are out there asking for people to give us money and support us, it's for a lot of things. It's for kids' education. It's for food stamps recipients. It's for supporting those BIPOC businesses that are just trying to get a little bit of a leg up in a tough world.
So on so many levels, this market is servicing all these kind of cuts of populations, right? The impact you mentioned to the farmers, the people who get their booth cost reduced as a result of participating in the program, the actual participants. You even have, chefs and restaurateurs, right? And we saw that as we were walking around, what better place to shop if you are a restaurateur in the Bay Area than here, where they have everything, folks pushing their carts around, but there are just some nuanced benefits that they get if they shop here. What is a chef's experience like when they pull up here? Because it looks like it's pretty easy to get in and get out. So what do you offer them that makes it easy for them to be here shopping?
They are an important constituency, and you're right. We do have a lot of different groups we're trying to serve. So the chef population is awesome because they buy in large quantities from the farms, and they are here rain or shine, and we give them a special parking pass so they can park on a lot or park in front, and they get to use carts, and they get a newsletter, and then in turn they give to us. So when we have 2 fancy parties a year that help to fundraise for all of these efforts, they say yes to them. We're really lucky that they do. Even the bartenders who come and shop here, then they make cocktails at our events. And then it is also a community for them. So chefs work incredibly hard. They're in their kitchens the majority of their time. And so when they're at the farmers markets, when they can actually connect with each other, which I love seeing, that chef to chef connection, where you can see their carts are piled high with produce, and then they're chatting with each other, looking at what each other are buying and doing. And it also means for the chefs who are shopping here, they're getting the best of, because they're tasting everything ahead of time. Like we said, cherries are in the market for the first time today. They're only going to get sweeter, but that some chefs are buying cherries right now, and they're going to go on a dessert menu or go inside of a dish.
And just lends itself to, that seasonality that we know and love California restaurants for. Yes, I saw one of the more famous chefs from one of the more well-known restaurants in the Bay Area.
Are we talking about Burdell?
Yes, pushing his cart around here as we were doing our market walk. So, folks are out and in and at the building, if you will.
It is so fun to watch everybody fangirl after him. He's been shopping in the market forever, but he is getting so much wonderful attention.
I mean, it must be like a complete,
And he's a total introvert, too. So when everybody's walking up to him and being like, congrats, he's like sort of embarrassed looking down, like,
Oh, man, it's hard to be on top, isn't it? Bay Area, it's time for a K in the Bay curated dining event. I know it's been 2 years since the last one, but I'm back. And this time I'm partnering with Oakland's finest, Chef Lala of House of Chefs. And we're taking over the patio at Cafe Colucci on Thursday, June 26th from 6:30 to 9:30 for a special evening and an exclusive multi-course pop-up dinner celebrating innovative dishes that highlight Black foodways with creative flair. Reserve your seat for this intimate dinner for 25 fellow foodies and enjoy a great meal, great company, and an unforgettable taste of Oakland's rich culinary talent. Link to tickets in the show notes. The volunteers are a huge part of this. They are staffing the booth where I stored my equipment this morning. They're so kind and nice. They're helping run the demo. I don't have to, I can imagine what you're going to say, but what is the value of the volunteer program? You started as one.
I did.
Yes.
That isn't the irony that I'm executive director now, and I started off volunteering because I just moved to San Francisco and I didn't know anyone.
Yeah.
And someone who was on the board at the time was like, oh, I think you should volunteer. You'd really love it. And 3 weeks later, it was a job.
Yeah.
The volunteer program, people come for different reasons. You've got retirees looking to keep engaged. You've got people between jobs. You've got people who just work in an office job and they want to be connected to the community. So everybody comes for a different reason, but I think they stay because they feel the heart and love in the work. And there's a lot of kindness here. It's a little crazy. The farmers market is out in the public and you deal with all the fields and all the people's emotions, or they're hungry, or they've been in traffic, or it's not all roses, right? There are times when the market is exhausting, but I think the vast majority of volunteers who work in the market love it because they are learning from a chef, or they're helping a kid explore the market for the first time, or they're even just working the veggie valet table, like they helped you store your things, and they get a chance to, they wrote your name down. Like that was one of the pandemic adaptations, because we used to give people a little wristlet that had a number on it, and then we started changing. No one wanted to take a wristlet that belonged to someone else in the early days of the pandemic. So we started just writing their names down on cards and then using a clothesline clip to clip it to a bucket. And that was wonderful because then we started to get to know everybody's name. So when you're a regular now, if you use Veggie Valet, now our staff actually knows you by name, and it's further knitting together this community. Like, why shop at a farmer's market when it's so inconvenient? Right? You can go to, you can order your groceries online in 10 minutes, click and have them delivered to your door. But like we talked about earlier when we were walking around the market, that's a soulless experience. You can come to the farmer's market, it's a little more inconvenient. You got to remember your bags. You're walking around, but what you are is connecting to community. And if you're a volunteer for Foodwise, then you're like, hey, Kahja, welcome back. Let me take your stuff for you. How's your day going? And you get those little lifts of connection throughout your whole shopping day.
Christine, I could count on one hand the number of times I've used one of those grocery delivery services. I know for some people, it's like time and efficiency is priority. But for me, I don't want somebody else picking my food. I feel robbed of my experience if I don't come to do this. This is like, for me, people know if they're looking for me on the weekend, I'm up in somebody's farmer's market. This is just what I want to be doing. More and more as farming, particularly urban farming in cities starts to become more popular, we're starting to hear this term. You mentioned it when we were doing our market walk today, regenerative farming, which I feel like I think I know what that means, but I'm not completely sure. So can you demystify that a little bit?
It kind of comes out of the philosophy that organic agriculture is a series of things you shouldn't do, right? So so don't spray pesticides, don't use synthetic fertilizers, and regenerative is meant to be an addition to that, which is a series of yeses. So what should you be doing? So, and they're not in opposition to each other. One is sort of if you're going further along in your growing practices, and maybe you were growing conventionally and then you transition to organic and you're organic, and now you kind of want to go a little bit beyond or a little further. Regenerative is about trying to leave, and it started mostly with soil. In all honesty, it started with leaving the soil healthier than you found it, because many farmers who are farming really ecologically talk about being soil farmers first, and the fruits and vegetables are just what comes out of their investment in the soil. And good soil is like a sponge; it'll hold that water, and when it rains really strong, that all the microbiome or the micro. I'm going to lose my words.
Micronutrients?
No, because that's in the plant. It's basically all the humus, all the things that make a soil spongy.
Okay.
And retain water and retain nutrients. And you want to invest in your soil. And part of that is making sure that you're pulling nitrogen out of the atmosphere and putting it into the soil. There's all sorts of different practices that farmers are doing to make it so that, let's say after a heavy rain, if your soil is compact and clay and hard, that rain will run off and take the soil with it. If your soil is a sponge, it'll hold that water, so you need to irrigate less because your plants can pull from that water later on.
Okay.
So regenerative farming started off with soil as its primary focus. And so therefore a lot of ranchers were starting regenerative agriculture because they're using large swaths of land for their animals to graze on. And then it's moved more into fruit and vegetable production.
Okay.
But it is, it's looking holistically at everything. So it's looking at how are you taking care of your farm workers? How are you taking care of your employees? There's sort of a whole checklist. So there's both what you're doing on the land and then how you're working with people. So I feel like, every 20 years we're going to come up with a different term that kind of speaks to the same thing. So no shade on regenerative, but it just, to me, is not, it's another word to capture the whole picture of what we're trying to do when we're trying to grow food in an ethical, environmentally sustainable way.
Yeah. And in cities, that's difficult, as we start to hear more and more about food as political activism. And I think about, I was recently at the Black Women in Food Summit in DC, which was amazing. And there was a woman who spoke. I was not familiar with her prior to that. Her name is Karen Washington.
Oh, yeah.
She founded Black Urban Growers.
She's in the East Bay.
Yes, I should have known who she was, but because I think she's from the Bronx originally, but I didn't know who she was. And she talked about farming through the lens of community organization, but also as equity work across race and gender. And I would imagine that probably touches on socioeconomics as well when you talk about urban farming. Because Foodwise is here in a city, right? And city customers is really primarily your base. How are you making sure that the supplier population is equitably brought along for the ride as well? Because, these last few years in California with climate change and wildfires has been particularly difficult. How are we making sure that the people like in Central California and, in the farming recesses that kind of this is their bread and butter, that they're brought along for this ride so that they're kind of enjoying the same fruits that the fruits, food pun, farmers market pun, but the same benefits that those of us who are here in the city and we just know it as I'm going to the store to grab this thing that we're enjoying.
So your question kind of touches on a lot of things. So one is urban farming, and Foodwise doesn't have a plot of land that we are maintaining. We do work with San Francisco Public Schools, and 2 of our high schools that we work in for our teen program have school gardens. So that is like the closest to us kind of touching the earth. What we are is kind of a convener and gatherer of people, so of food producers, of farmers, to bring everyone together, whether it's at the farmers market or at a panel discussion or at a workshop or in a cooking class. We fundamentally believe that when you are supporting smaller scale farmers, largely those farmers are coming from rural populations, not farming in urban cities. Those farmers are making more for their investment. So they're able to charge more and make more because they're cutting out a middleman. They're not selling to a wholesaler who's making the profit. They're putting all the effort into coming to you in the city, and you're supporting them directly with your dollar. That strengthens the rural economy and the rural fabric, and you're helping that farmer to stay in business. So small family-owned farmers, and many of them are important because it also decentralizes the food system. So it strengthens us as a state and as a community when you have a lot of different farmers who are able to come in and support us. So in other words, when there were huge supply chain interruptions during the pandemic and people couldn't get flour or eggs or certain foods, when you have a strong local food economy, you are less vulnerable to some of those things. So we believe that supporting small-scale local farmers is helping not only us as urban residents, it's helping the rural economy as well.
Okay.
So, but how are we then, thinking of the Karen Washingtons of the world who are like, no, we're growing food in an urban environment so that people can actually see what's growing and harvest things, or programs that are helping people to have community gardens or backyard garden spaces. Those are all different facets of how we connect people to food.
Got it.
Because I think, when we were walking around, we were looking at the cilantro and the cilantro flowers, and you're like, oh, I didn't realize we could eat those, or I didn't know that that's what that happened. But it's because I didn't grow up gardening with a lot of food in my backyard. We maybe had tomatoes, every once in a while. But my parents weren't big gardeners. And I started learning more about actually how plants are growing when I was in college, because there was a farm at UC Santa Cruz on the farm, on the campus. And so I could see it more, watch the life cycle of plants. I also think that's why gardens in schools are so important. You have to see it, touch it, taste it to really understand. And then when you see how difficult and challenging farming is, you are less likely to object to paying, $5 for a bunch of carrots, because you understand how much work goes into making that. And then ideally, hopefully less food waste too, because it's precious.
This is, you know what, you did a really good job of giving a good answer to that convoluted question I asked you. You did a good job of that because you touched on exactly the heart of what I was trying to find out. San Francisco, we're at Tech's front door. You know, it's a place where, you know, earnings may be on the higher side because the cost of living is on the higher side. But a lot of the people who come here and are representative of the farms who vend, you know, they're in areas of California where that is not the reality. So doing this in a way where it is equitable for them, as well as, or as much as, the person who is coming in here to shop with their 6-figure salary, there is a win in there for both sides of that.
There needs to be a win in both sides. The urban elite cannot look at the rural with disdain. You can't, you know, like calling cities like Bakersfield the armpit of California. Like,
Who said that?
Oh, well, there lots of people do. And I get very frustrated because I'm like, do you understand how much we rely on rural economies for our food, for all of, you know, and then when you know your farmer, when you have relationships with them, or if you're even lucky enough to go out and actually walk that land, you have so much more of an appreciation for it. You actually understand water politics in California better. Food is a gateway to everything. I mean, it connects, you know, it's culture, it's identity, it's politics around labor, it is health and nutrition. Like, food is literally a vehicle for almost any topic you can talk about.
I believe you. I think you answered this already, but I'm going to ask you outright in case I missed it. What is the best part of this job?
Oh my God. You know, I've been asking myself that a lot recently because I have been pretty down, I'll say honestly, about how things are going in our nation and decisions that we're making and how much we're deprioritizing equity and some of the progressive values that I just wholeheartedly believe in. So I have been trying to remind myself to ground myself in what is the truth that is here. And it is a lot of community care. Like, I think there's a lot of selflessness within the farming community and in food. You know, people who make food for a living want to share it with you, whether they're growing it or whether they're making they're a restaurant making a dish. Like, cooking for someone, offering food is one of the most fundamental forms of love and care. And I come back to that all the time because this is an incredibly hardworking community and population. People do it for their love and belief in the possibility. I mean, farmers they have as a job to face so much uncertainty. The weather, what is it going to do? How are they going to plant something? And then there's a freeze that comes through and knocks off all the little buds that are growing on their apricot trees, and their apricot harvest is, you know, decimated or half of what it should be. And they have to navigate so much uncertainty. So if they can do it in their job, then I can do it in my job. Yeah. So I get a lot of solace in the love and heart, and also a lot of like, suck it up, like determination, roll up your sleeves, girl, you can do this.
Yes. Well, y'all are doing an amazing job. I shop a lot of markets. This is one of my favorites. It is definitely like a destination when I want to go have a full Saturday morning of culture and community and culinary goodness. So thank you for everything that you all do to add this rich resource to the Bay Area community.
Thank you for being such a informed, enthusiastic shopper. I loved walking around with you and how much you knew everybody and saw everything. It's really fun.
I'm outside, Christine.
I know.
Look, we're going to run through just like a couple of fun questions before we wrap up. Okay. So what's your favorite season at the market?
Oh, spring. It's the one we're in right now. I feel like it's because I've already lived through winter root vegetables and I love them, but when spring comes, it's that like, okay, it's getting lighter out, and so it's like late spring to early summer. So you've got blueberries in and apricots and cherries and spring peas. And I mean, I have 2 children. They're now teenagers. And one of my favorite jokes about coming home with a big bag of peas is we'd be shelling them and they'd be eating them as fast as we could shell them. And so it was like, never mind, we're just in this activity to just enjoy eating them in the moment. And I love that.
The practice. Yes, I love this season too. Although corn season, I wait for it every year. I mean, it's just the best
corn
thing
and tomatoes.
Ever. Yes, corn and tomatoes. I love an early girl. What's something you've learned about people doing this job?
I've learned to be a better listener to people, because people will tell you what they need, you know, and tell you how to support them. I feel like I'm in more of a listening stage of my life. I think when I was younger, it was like, let me tell you all the things I know, and let me tell you, because I wanted someone to get excited by the things that I was excited by, and so I said, so will you ask your question again? I want to make sure I'm answering it right.
No, you're doing great. What's something you learned about people doing this job?
Okay, I never knew before this job that a farm's landscape was a reflection of their personality. Kind of like your bedroom. Oh. Like your bedroom tells you a lot about who you are. Like, are your clothes on a chair or on the floor? Are things hung up? Do you have a stack of books that are dusty near your bedside because you want to read them all, but you're just not getting to it? Do you have fresh flowers? All of it. So someone's farm tells you a lot about who they are. Are their rows really neatly laid out? Do they have things labeled? Is it wild? Is there, are they growing lettuce greens in between their orchard rows? Their farm is a reflection of who they are in a way that I did not know.
I didn't know any of that. So good. Your farm is you. Know that if you go visit a farm. What's a must-have item that you get at the market every week?
Eggs.
Okay. At least you don't have to fight for them in Trader Joe's.
No, and they're so much better. And also, so the colors. I will say, I do love a beautiful thing. I love opening my box of eggs, and some of them are green, and some of them are brown, and some of them are white.
Spotted.
Yes. And I delight in the little things like that. And sometimes I'll put all my green eggs in a green bowl that I have and just look at them because they make me smile. And then I'll crack them open and make some scrambled eggs.
And they're so bright and orange and vibrant. When it really is different from eggs from the store. So, if you're done fighting it out in the grocery store and you're able to get them at the farmer's market, I say do it. What's an ingredient at the market you haven't worked with yet, but you're excited to try?
I will say bok choy is something I'm intimidated by and have not worked with, and yet it's like this baseline fundamental vegetable. So you too can grow and change. One is bok choy.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this last question. It's really for the listenership because I asked you this during the market walk and you answered, and we have a shared answer there. Do you have a favorite vendor stand?
For breakfast. You have to ask specifically, do I have a favorite vendor that I go to for breakfast? Yes. Primavera and their chilaquiles. There is just nothing. It just delivers every time. Every
time. We shared a plate this morning, and it was as good as always. Again, eggs are a very temperamental thing to cook. They get the eggs right. It's a soft scramble, and it is the same soft scramble order after order, Saturday after Saturday. So I don't know what y'all are doing over there, Primavera, but
we got to watch them. We got to go on the back of the booth. They were really kind, and they let us go back there, and we got to watch them literally pour, a 2 cups of scrambled eggs into a pan with oil on it and watch this enormous whisk. And he's just standing there casually, chilling out, dancing to the music, making the best eggs you've ever had in your life.
He hasn't missed a beat. Well, shout out to Wesley for, the first ever video accompaniment for an episode of the As Told By podcast. Wesley came out and helped me this morning with all the videography. So shout out to him if you like that. Christine, tell us where we can find out more information about Foodwise.
Absolutely on our website, or you can follow us on the socials. We're on all the usual platforms, but foodwise.org. If you want to find out what's in season, you want to discover a recipe to cook something new, you want to know where the farmer's market is, what days of the week, you want to know even how to use your CalFresh and EBT links. We want everyone, wherever you are in your food journey, we'll meet you there and bring you in.
All right. Well, thank you. I will make sure I post all of that with the show notes. If you want to keep up with me in between episodes, you can find me either at kayinthebay.com or you can find me on Instagram at heykayinthebay. If you liked this week's episode, make sure you leave us a 5-star rating. Subscribe to the podcast, like, share, follow. That has been this week's episode of the As Told By podcast from Foodwise and the Ferry Plaza Marketplace here, Farmers Market here in San Francisco on the Embarcadero. And I will see you soon with a new episode.